However you are and whenever you are, welcome, good souls, to Paranormal Now. I'm Alan B. Smith. Join us on this cosmic highway of paranormal portals and tantalizing turnoffs. We have an awesome show for you tonight. Split show, 2 guests. First hour is Sienna of Demure Lyfe to discuss the internal process of the soul working towards balance, inner peace, and self-empowerment. And we might tip into a little bit of the paranormal as we go. And in the second hour, Margie K of the UnX Radio Network, which this show is syndicated on at 2 a.m. on Fridays, will discuss her new co-authored book, The Fastmovers, Evidence of High-speed UFOs, UAPs. If you're a fan of Paranormal Now or Coffee and UFOs, please consider going to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/paranormalpop. And please hit the like, subscribe, and comment down below. Please share the links. It's a new channel in regard to the regularity of these shows, so I'm trying really hard to build up this channel. So if you're a fan, please jump over there, subscribe, and also hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on future shows. The Skype call-in line will be open in the last 30 minutes. And of course, don't forget about the Coffee Bean discount code. aliencoffeebean.com. If you go to their website, Paranormal Now offers a 20% discount code, and that code is mystery, MYSTRY 20, all caps, mystery 20. And please again follow on social media wherever you find us, but in particular YouTube. My guest tonight in the first hour is Sienna. She is the owner of the metaphysical shop Demure Lyfe, and she believes the soul has a language that she's able to comprehend. And we'll get into very deep waters as far as mysticism, metaphysical teachings, healings, and so much more. Sienna, welcome to Paranormal Now.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, me too. Thank you. We're actually not too far from each other in the Hudson Valley, so it's fun to be on the show with a neighbor.
Right on. Exactly.
Yeah. So you have a metaphysical shop, but there's so much more to Sienna that I want to talk about tonight. And if anybody goes to your website, if anyone goes to your website and just reads your bio, it's like, wow, it's poetry meets spiritual and metaphysical, quandaries and exposition. And you also offer a lot of services like healing, Reiki, and palmistry. So you have so much going on. So tell us a little bit about, your beginnings and, what made Sienna Sienna.
Right. So, wow. Thank you. That was pretty nice to have you really understand that I actually do view like my poetry, because I think that life is poetry. So that is a very big part of who I am. So thank you for that acknowledgement. I would say that how I really got into this work is really just being who I am. My mother was very intuitive, and she really poured that into me. My grandmother and her mother, and before that. So it's just kind of something that happened to me, I would say. I just, it's funny is because it's so trendy now. And then a lot of people that know me, they'll be like, wow, this is just who you are. So it's it flows. But
so where are you flowing from?
In what sense?
Where's your spiritual, center?
Where did I begin? So with that, I would say my mother being a holistic practitioner herself. She was always grabbing something from outside, put this in your tea, eat this, rub this on that, she was a natural healer. So it was just something that was just put into me at a very young age, just to seek medicine that's within the earth. So I just became very sentient in that way. If you see me going like this, it's actually, I have an eye condition. It's called exotropia. Exotropia is this condition where your eyes kind of you have to focus, and it does open up my availability in a different way, because it's a congenital condition. So I have a different perspective than a lot of people, because my mind takes 2 pictures to every person's 1. So like, think about what your brain does with all that extra information all the time. So being somebody that started on that path, I've always had a different outlook. And also with my mother's hand, you know, like being a natural healer, it kind of made me see the world in a different way. And I think that it's empowered me, but it's also it's not only just empowered me, but it's really made me feel more confident in that delivery of like, okay, this is the way my mind has to work, so I understand. So like, that's really made me more sentient towards others, is because of this disability, and I put it in air quotes, you know, because if your brain works differently, it's definitely something that, you know, you can't help, but it's definitely an availability where you're like, wow, you know, like I am so much more open to this. And, you know, like, because, so I might like grab my glasses at some point. Yeah, so like for me to wear glasses, I didn't wear them. Like, this is actually a new thing for me. You know, 20 years of not wearing them. And, you know, like your mind gets wired in a different way. So yeah, that's where it really began. And, you know, my mother being such a holistic healer and having that, you know, like as my home source, I definitely feel as though like I merged them for my own pathway. And I found that it's been very helpful to me and the other people around me.
Yeah. And what do you see in the world that you feel like you thought something's not right? I need to play a role as far as a healer or an educator of spiritual science and all this kind of thing.
I love that question. So what really, for me to do it as like a profession, I really didn't have any other thing to do, to be honest. That's just who I am. Like, I just knew that that's what I had to do. I did obviously work a 9-to-5 job like many people have, but something just set within me, because I'm very, like I said, I'm very sentient and I feel other people. So, you know, like a lot of people would come to me and ask me questions, and I was just giving answers and information that I had no reason to know, you know, and I've always been that way. Just having that additional information from those double pictures that I get all the time. So, you know, like a lot of people have always seeked my advice, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to do this for a living. This is what I should do, you know? And, you know, like through that, you know, I started doing like tarot. That's something that I really started with, is because, you know, it was visual, and that's where my disability is. So like my mom would give me cards to look at and things to do, you know? So like I was like understanding tarot and opening up in a different way. Seeing the pictures, understanding the images, and understanding things. So like I was able to deliver messages and convey that. That's also a part of my poetry, where I'm able to express things in a way that I feel like is the language of the soul. You know, like I think that, and it's also like a lot of people don't realize that the soul and the spirit are 2 different things. The soul is who you are and what is, right? But like your spirit is sentient. It's what animates you, you know. It's the smile on your face, it's the, you know, it's the way, you know, your nose turns up, it's, you know, all those things. That's your spirit, and those are the things that animate you. So I'm able to look at people and feel what they're feeling just by observing. I guess it would be like a internal body language, you know, like it's your body on the inside, and I'm just able to feel it just because of that lack that I had so long. Like when I was a child, like I had to see people differently. I had to feel people differently.
How do you think people are normally? Like the rest of us walking around, you know, what do you see is wrong?
Are we going to go there?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So honestly, not everybody has a spirit, you know, not everybody has it. you know, and like for me, what I see is like there's the soulless and then there's the spirited, you know, and it's kind of like the Matrix. Like some people are literal background. That's what I see. It's like, you know, there's also different, you know, I want to call them entities that live amongst us in human form, you know, and I'm sure you've heard of like reptilians, insectalians. Like we could go on and go deep down that rabbit hole. I see all those things. I understand all those things. And like you can feel it in a different way. Like I can't express it deeper than that. Like I feel it. It's like,
so when you're around someone,
yes, I could feel it. Like if I don't even need to be around you. I could look at you and feel you, you know, like as to what you might be feeling or what you've been through, just based off of, you know, our expression, our exchange, you know.
I'm feeling very vulnerable right now.
Yeah, it's like it's an internal body language. Like I said, you know, like I've had grown men that have been like big brolic, you know, like cry like babies in my arms because I've understood something or I said something or I see something and I'm able to convey it to them in a way that's non-confrontational. And I think that's really important because a lot of people don't like confrontation, you know, so they stop their soul work, right? They'll be like, nope, this is too weird.
Yeah, isn't that kind of ironic though? Because it's true, a lot of people don't like confrontation, except, you know, there are some of us, our personalities that when angry, it's all about confrontation. But when it's talking about your feelings, like I can't confront you. Why is that?
You know, I want to also say, because I think what you're about to say too, like how I heard it come through. I find it interesting that we as a collective, like human experience, we gravitate towards negative things, like in a social construct when it's like negative social posts, you know, but you know, like be it our trauma, we're afraid to be vulnerable with it. And it's like, I don't want to talk about this. I don't want to offend. I don't want to do, you know, these are big things they're blockages. And if we just express them and be like, you know what, this bothers me, you know, like, or, you know, this is something that I'm experiencing and I'd like you to share in part of that. It's really it's the fear of being seen. You know, people don't like to be seen. And I think that like with social media, it's a really interesting perspective. And I'm going to use that as the example. It's like you see people's best, you know, highest best on social media. You see what people look like on social media, and they don't look like that when you run into them at the grocery store. They put their best foot forward. But the thing is we are judging ourselves based off of other people's best, you know, and that is, I think that it's like a mass like mental situation that's happening where like people are like shifting in and out of like a stable set of consciousness within their spirit. Like they're arriving and being antagonized by other people's spirits, you know, like other people's spirits are communicating to them what their traumas are, and it's like acting out in a weird way. That's the way I see it. It's like everybody's spirits are interacting in a weird way. So it's like they kind of go and get antagonistic, if that makes sense. Do you understand where I'm going with that?
I think it does, but it makes me wonder, what is the soul? Like what's your conception of what the soul is?
So I feel like the soul is who you are as a sentient being, like who you are, your lessons, your personality, but it's not the way you express your personality. It's the things that you know just innately, your primal self. That is your rawest form. And then if you journey back, like through the Akashic records, have you ever experienced the Akashic records or know of it?
I'll tell you a really quick breakdown. One experience I had, it was when I was hallucinating on psilocybin mushrooms, and I had what I call a download, and it was beyond intense. And it was a bad trip anyway, and I've not, I don't do mushrooms anymore. But it was something like there was all this information coming at me, and I couldn't handle it. It was too much.
Right. And that is from the universe. When you
That's what it felt like.
When you work with plant medicine, because I'm familiar with plant medicine, ayahuasca, San Pedro, peyote, like mushrooms. I don't do them, but I've worked with them and I've seen them worked with, throughout my life. But anyway, that intense emotion that you're feeling within your soul and so much information coming to you all at once, that's your consciousness accepting that information through your soul. And that's why it's like so intense. That's why that experience comes up so intensely for many people, is because your soul is actually being engaged. And like I said, the spirit and the soul are two separate things. Like your spirit engages with many things, but your soul is very untapped. And that's what I do. That's what I work with, is with my shamanic clearing, is I work with the soul. So it's really getting into the depth of, like, this could be past life stuff. It might not even be this present experience. This is something that you could have been bringing from past lives, because I personally believe that the soul in itself, I don't want to say recycles itself, because that sounds like weird, but like reincarnation is real. I believe that. I've had those experiences. If you've had those, like, memories that make no sense, if you have traumas that make no sense, phobias, things that come up, like, for example, when I was little, I hated mice. I had no reason for it. I was deathly afraid of it. And then I worked through a past life memory where I remember being in a plague and I saw a lot of mice. And it was like, really, it wasn't something that I was conscious of, but I mean, from when I was a very small child, I didn't understand that. So many people have these experiences, their likes, their dislikes, that's the soul. But your spirit animates that. Your spirit expresses it. So the spirit is the expression of the soul, if that makes sense. So your soul is actually who you are. Your spirit is what animates it.
Yeah, it's a little Catholic in that it's like I have these 3 different parts that I kind of have to digest. And I think people prefer things to be simpler, but obviously life isn't necessarily simple. But I do feel
my husband says life. My husband, I love this expression. He says life is simple. It's just not easy, and it is simple, but it isn't easy, so.
Right. I mean, that's not too far from, Buddhist, all life is suffering. But here's a pathway to joy, right? Like it's complicated. There's pain, but there is a way to enjoy it. What's your greatest joy in life, or what are your greatest joys?
My children. Just watching them grow and being like, yo, I did that. Like, those are mine. Like, I made people, that's my biggest joy. I have Great. These beautiful children. They're incredible. They light up my life. Other than that, obviously working with people one-on-one and really seeing shifts within them. And I don't find it rewarding on my part that I did anything, but it's what I see is the beauty of, like, their joy expression, like, from the work that they've done. Not necessarily based off of what I've said, but, just having a conversation, like sharing a smile, giving a perspective, just a sentence could shift somebody's whole reality. That's what I enjoy. I love saying stuff and then people coming back to me years later and be like, yo, see, you know what you said to me? And I'll be like, I have no clue what I said to you. Like, cause when I do my work, it's not, you're not getting me this right now. This is me as a friend, me talking to you. But when I'm in my work, I am so committed to that person, that experience. And it's different. It's different. It's where I can go into my sacred self and share that with somebody and have them share that back. And that's what I love about my work. And that's a great joy to me. So, like, people reward themselves through that. Yeah.
What is your sacred self, and is that something that other people can find? for them?
They can find it on Demure Lyfe. They can hang out with me. but no. But you know, like my sacred self is really like my most authentic self, my purest spirit, sharing the information that I have learned throughout my life, and then expressing that backwards, being a mirror, you know, because the thing is people come to me all the time like, oh my God, I just wanted to get a reading from you, or, oh, you know, like you inspired me for this or that. And, you know, really what I say is the light in me, you see, like that's in you. You want to see that back in you. So let's do it. Like, let me be that mirror for you so you can see your own beauty. Let me see your own light, you know, like I love sharing that part of myself with people. And I think that's it.
Yeah. And I guess that if people are seeing that in you and they're drawn to you or other, you know, soul workers, as you put it, I guess they're probably, if nothing else, unconsciously seeing that light as a reflection.
Yeah, and that's what it is.
Yeah,
that's exactly what it is I always say, whatever you see in me, that's in you. So if you don't like me, you don't like you. If you love me, you love you. It's, you know, like that's the way it is. That's really on any connection. You know, like if you find yourself judging somebody and being like, I don't like her, but you don't know her. You don't know her. You don't know anything about him or, you know, whoever. You know, like if you look at somebody and you're like, I don't like this, or, you know, you don't personally know them to say or discredit anyone unless you've sat down, made a definitive understanding that, nope, this is not for me. You can't look at somebody and say, oh, I don't like this person, you know, like, so I think that if somebody, you know, within my work, they're like, oh, I don't like her, like, okay, you don't have to like me, but there's something in me. I always call myself the trigger. So like, or the catalyst. So like, I find myself to find people that are like, I want to know you, or I want to connect with you based off of what you will show me. And that's always been my experience. So
what religions inform you, like being raised, like spiritual systems? What did you take with you?
So my mom was a mountain woman. Like I said, she definitely didn't really like go to like church or anything like that. My grandmother, on the other hand, her mother, she was very Christian. So I did grow up with a Bible hand, being Native American, and I just searched, you know, like just I studied Taoism, I studied Buddhism, I studied Hinduism, like just out of curiosity and like learning, you know. So I think that the best way personally for myself, because religion is, you know, touchy, I like to pull from everything that makes sense to me. And I think that everything has a divine connection. But my roots are definitely Christian. I use the Bible for a lot of things. And a lot of people would be surprised to hear that. But I do. I listen and read the Bible. But I enjoy what the message is, because I could take away, you know, like the the dogma, you know, like the finger wagging. I could feel the inspiration. So
you can take away the absolutism of the laws.
Yeah, right. Because it's not necessary. Nothing is absolute, you know, nothing. So
yeah. So right now, on a daily basis, what do you personally practice to get in touch with the divine or whatever it is?
So day to day, I would say that I live my life like a regular person, you know, like just being a mom, you know, running a business, you know, going here, there. But something that I definitely need for myself is at least one, and I fight my husband on a half hour to an hour. So like, it's like one solid hour to half hour of silence. I need silence to just clear out everything, because I hear so much all the time in my mind. Like I was saying, my mind processes differently. So like, I really need that downtime to clear out all the things that I just processed, you know? So I would say quiet time, breath work is very important to me. So following my own breath, you know, instilling that, you know, there's life within my body, you know, because when you when you have an over processing, thing that goes on, you tend to dissociate from your body. Like your spirit almost kind of lifts out of your body and you watch yourself like animate, So it's like really important for me to merge my spirit back into my physical body. So like I do a lot of stretching, breathing, and quiet. Those are needs. I need at least an hour of that a day.
So you believe reincarnation is a real thing, that our soul goes from lifetime to lifetime?
Absolutely, without a doubt.
Is that some people think that there's karma involved with that? What's your concept? Why does the soul go from life to life?
Right. So from my perspective and the way what I've been shown is that the soul goes from life to learn, and the thing is when you have learned all that you want, I feel like that there's also a lot of people don't talk about the different realms and dimensions that we're going in. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you can be in this dimension, die in this dimension, in this timeline, and then reappear in another timeline, perhaps, so there's so many different avenues as to where the soul can incarnate next. So I would say for me, I find that it's like when you reincarnate, it's based off of accepting and processing your information, what you need to do with it next. And I don't like to use the word karma, because I think that karma is very much like you were a terrible person, you're reaping what you sown. And I don't necessarily think that it's that personally. I think that it's more so based off of our decisions. And I think that the most powerful thing that we as humans have is free will, right? So if we have free will, we're experiencing the chance to make a difference every chance we get. So that's what my perception is. That's what I've experienced, and that's what I've seen in others. Is it's based off of like having the acknowledgement, like when you know better, you do better. So it's like choosing to do something differently. It's not necessarily like, asking for forgiveness, because that's another point I'd like to touch on. It's like, there's crazy people out there, there's murderers and things that, like, people that do have, karma to reap. There is that aspect too. And I do think that that is a part of it, but I don't think that that's the core part, like I think that it's more so about like learning, accessing information. And I think that when people do like horrible, atrocious things, I think that this is what I tell myself so I could go to sleep at night, is that their soul is demolished, it's been put in the incinerator for the next transmission, but unfortunately, some of them get through and it happens as a reoccurrence. But I would like to believe as a collective, we're getting clearer, I hope.
Okay. It sounds like there's like a cosmic filtration that doesn't work.
That's
perfectly.
What I feel. I do feel that. I do feel that way because, but history does repeat itself too. Like we have a lot of the same people kind of coming back and reincarnating. Like, I'll have to send you some just like off like images that I found, like people, for example, like in my family, I'll show you, like I look identical to my grandmother, like identical. And she looks like I look like her in this timeline, but the thing is like you can reoccur over and over, like it's, I'm not saying I was my grandmother because I did know her in person, but, like I could have been like a observance of her karma, or, like for my mother to like have realization, like there was something that needed to be, worked on with that. So like, and that's been my experience as well. It's like, I noticed that like my mother saw so much of her mother in me that she had to like it triggered her to her own awareness of what she needed to work through, and she was able to do so, and that's kind of like the way I think that things work. So it's like a physical recognition, a soul recognition. I think the soul kind of has like a look, in a sense, of the way it like to come back and appear so it could do its work. I think that there's
so
too.
If you're just tuning in, I'm speaking with Sienna of Demure Lyfe, and for those on YouTube and Facebook, I put the link to Demure Lyfe, spelled with a Y, .com in the chat as well if you want to go check out her website. So Sienna, when we kind of hit our rock bottoms, or things get really, really, really tough, and we're kind of in that desperate state, what do you recommend for people to do spiritually? I'm not asking for psychology, but
because that's what I was gonna first say. That's actually what I was gonna first say is when you're getting really low, I am not one of those people that are gonna say, oh, we'll take some, hold a crystal to your forehead and call me in the morning. I'm not that type of healer. I will definitely tell you to.
But I might do that sometimes.
Yeah, you should try, but that's definitely in addition to, so
Right.
like I definitely am Western meets Eastern, or metaphysics, or however you put it, and I think that they hold hands. So if you are feeling like you are completely depressed, down, you should seek medical attention first. If you have done so and you are working in conjunction with your doctor, you could definitely get a naturopath, somebody to connect with you on a holistic level. So I would say working with two, both hands, like that's what they say, work with both hands. I would work with both and, see where that takes you. And I would also look into your body composition as well, as to see like if you're lacking any minerals, or like things like that. Like these are really important things, because the spirit is in the house, the body is the house. So you got to make sure your body is right, so your spirit is like able to animate the way that you want to have it go for, like for example, and I'm not fat shaming or anything like that, but like as an example, like the show 600-Pound Life, right? Those people are really like miserable and trapped within their bodies, so they're not moving their bodies, they're not animating the way that they are, and there is deeper issues. There's mental issues there, but there's also physical issues, and like that's a really good example of something. So I would say like making sure that your body is in complete operation, so it is not, being antagonistic to your spirit, which is delicate,
If I could generalize that a bit more, I think it's about being in tune with your body.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
If we're all making that effort, we're all different, we have different genetics, all those things, but if you're in tune with your body, kind of go in the direction that your body, kind of listen to your body. I do that sometimes, and I'll gobble down peanut butter, and then I feel better. I don't know why. I don't know what's in peanut butter. I love it though, and it'll uplift me for whatever reason. Or burning sage, or going for a walk, or all kinds of things. And you do Reiki as part of your therapies. So I have a question from Kat Brooks in YouTube. What does Sienna do to start her Reiki session? As a Reiki therapist myself, I'd love to know this. Virtual hug.
Yes, awesome. So the first thing that I do is making sure that I found grounding within myself before working with anybody else. So making sure that, like, let's say I have an appointment at 1 o'clock. I make sure that 1 o'clock on a Tuesday, I have an appointment with somebody to work with them. What I would do is make sure that I'm not taking in anything that, can weaken me in any way. So, like within 24 hours of that, I would make sure that I'm not having any wine or, doing anything like that, finding real grounding, focusing on my physical body, making sure that, I'm eating very clean. I like to eat as clean as I can when I'm doing that work. So finding that, starting my sessions, obviously doing the whole energy shifting and doing all my symbols and, calling in light. That's how I get doing it for myself. But yeah, really grounding, that's the biggest part, is like finding that. I like candles. I make handmade incense. So like really getting into that whole flow, lighting my incense and just having my own vibe, because you can't pour it from an empty cup. So
Right.
make sure that you are full.
There is something to lighting candles.
Yes.
Every religion, spiritual tradition on the planet lights a candle or a fire. What's up with that?
So I don't have the answer, because I can't speak for all religions, but you know,
Sure.
like what I can say is, like, from a spiritual perspective, is the fire represents the spirit. It dances, it moves, it is the animation of life. And when you give something fire, it's dancing. So like, for example, some of my personal practices, I, you know, petition my ancestors, I connect. So I'm lighting candles, and that fire represents the spirit of my ancestors. So I'm able to light that candle, watch it, see how it's going to interact with me. If it's a slow burn, if it's like a small fire, I know that, you know, my intentions weren't strong enough. So I need to, you know, center myself, reground, and light the candle again. That's how a lot of people work with candles. But that's just something that's underground. You might not know all about that.
Do you think do you think that our ancestors are really all around us?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely.
Do you sense them? Do you see them
Well, in other people or myself?
in yourself?
In myself, I absolutely do. You know, like, that's what I do, is I work with my ancestors. If you've come to my shop, I have a whole ancestor table of everybody in my lineage that is transitioned. And I share them with the people that come into the store, because these are the people that I've stood on their back to be who I am. So, you know, I do hear their words through what I say. You know, like, there's a certain dialect that my people have, and I hear it coming out, like when I'm talking real fast, and I hear the messages as they would tell them to me. And, you know, like, so I sense them around me, because those messages weren't mine. You know, like, they weren't mine. That's not the way I'd express it on a day-to-day. You know, and as a physical manifestation, like as a physical emanation, I've seen, you know, physical emanations, not my own personally. And I there's a whole thing with that too. I personally believe that, like, a lot of people, when they transition, and they do come back, you know, and like, you see people, you know, spirits and emanations, it's not necessarily their soul, it's their spirit. And it's like their spiritual imprint still here, you know. So it's in keeping them alive, you know. It's, have you ever seen, do you have kids? The movie Coco is a really good explanation of that. It's like having ofrenda, where it's just like an altar where you put your ancestors, and then, you know, like, you know, on one night a year they all come back, but it's not just one night a year, it's all the time. So like, but you keep your ancestors alive through the stories you tell, and you see them, and they work on your behalf. And the more you know that, the more you feel it, and it's strong, like, it's definitive. And I did say earlier, there's nothing absolute. This is something that I believe is absolute.
Yeah, Coco was a good movie, and again, you know, it's littered with lights and candle and
right.
So
candles and the lights.
Right. Jesus Torres Martinez says, in my personal experience, death is a cosmic cleanser. Alan, when you go through it, you have to face your actions, and you will judge yourself. You will only reincarnate when the soul is ready.
I agree with that. I do. And I was actually going to say, like, you know, your spirit is what's here. Your soul is, like, in a sense of like a waiting room, you know, waiting to transition into a new experience. And your spirit is, like, really, like, basically the spiritual imprint that's, like, kind of lingering. You know, it's not necessarily you know, your actions. It's like residual, you know, energy that's here, you know. So
Yeah.
I agree with that. Yeah.
What about the ones that we've lost? Do they stick around, or do they come and go?
So I think that the people that we lose, you know, like they definitely pronounce themselves, their emanation, their spirit really lives. Like, for example, my mother transitioned in 2020. My mother
Mhm.
lives within me though, you know, like, so it's really my awareness in activating her spirit within me, because when you have children, it is an activation that you have, and you share with this child. You give them half of your being, your blood,
Yeah.
your spirit, you know. So like I do feel my mother very strongly with that, but you know, there's also that, you know, I feel her around, but I feel like she, for example, she told me when because she was very sick, she actually told me, when you see or hear wind, like when you feel it and you see it moving, that's me, and know that that's me. And
Mm.
whenever I'm feeling low, the wind will start gushing, you know, like stuff like that. Like, yeah, there's physical emanations. They're always around to lift you, you know, like that's the awareness of life. That's love
Yeah.
never dies. So yes, I 100% think that family, people, friends, you know, people that we hold dear, they consistently check in on us, because there is a part of them that leaves that tie, you know, like there's blood ties, you know, like you're able to check in on your family, you know. That's what I believe.
Do you dabble in incarnations, or magic, incantations and magic
I was like,
at all?
carnations, flowers. I like
Yeah.
flowers.
You
Um,
like flowers?
I do. I would say that's kind of like a little like, mm, so I do something called conjure work, and conjure is from where my father's from, in Mississippi, New Orleans area. It's hoodoo. Yes, it is traditional in that sense. But it's very sacred to me, and I don't do it like as a business. It's something that I do for
Mhm.
myself.
I see. Okay.
Mhm.
Are there any dangers in that, or is that really just a taboo myth?
So, so within my personal, like, there's different ones. So like for Wicca, like Wicca is very popular magic, you know, like, and there's like the threefold, you know, like, you know, whatever you do, you'll get back three times worse, or you know, the karma. But
Hmm.
like in the work that I do, it's what I was saying, it's working with both hands. A witch that can't hex can't heal. And that's the way I was raised. You know, like if I can't protect myself, I can't heal you. So I have to know how to do both. So it's not my intention to harm, but I can't. And I will protect myself. But you know, that's that. But if that makes sense.
No, it does. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's an afterlife. You said there's also multiple dimensions. So if we're reincarnating, are we reincarnating into the same timeline, or are we jumping from different timelines with each reincarnation?
So I think that, you know, I'm not all knowing. So like I'm definitely not saying, but from my perspective, I think a lot about this actually. So I'm excited that you asked me this. I'm gonna work this out with you here on
All
how
right.
to express this.
Hmm.
Um I feel like there's multiple dimensions, and I feel like that there's different timelines, right? I feel like we as people, are able to timeline jump now, right? Like in our minds, in astral sense, like, you know, we can revisit, you know, through forms of hypnotherapy to
Hmm.
transform to different, you know, timelines, you know, within our life to do healing.
Yeah.
um there's also different dimensions where there's, you know, people that, and I say people like they look like people, but they may not be people, right? Or, you know, other versions of ourselves. I've never personally been to another dimension, but I know that they exist. So I don't know exactly what's in them, but yeah, there's
Wait,
definitely.
how do you know they exist? Like you hear this from other people, or
No, it's the sense that I just feel like that there's so many of like wormholes within the universe that we currently live in, that there has to be different dimensions for these people, because they're not indigenous to this planet, if that makes sense. So like, for example, reptilians, insectalians, you know, like all these, you know, like different entities that live here, they're not from here. So they must be from a different dimension, a different planet. And these are answers I don't have. I just know that I see them walking around and they're not from here, and they're not born and raised here. So, you know, like there has to be a wormhole somewhere where they're just able to walk in and out of our reality, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's interesting because if we reincarnate, are we reincarnating only as humans?
That I think is a great question too, because I was just asked that the other day, and I definitely think that you have the option to clearly reincarnate as anything that you want with that karma. You know, like I don't think, you know, if you say karma, if we were using that term from before, I think it's something like that. Like you kind of have an idea of what you're going to go into, or what lessons you're going to learn, what you're going to look like. So why not pick the species, or you know whatever you're going to be. I mean, I would love to be a bird to come back as a bird. You know, like what's to say that that's not a choice that I could have. You know, so I don't think anybody knows that until it's time. So like I can say from my perspective as what I've seen, but it's different for everybody. And it is through this practice, and I've been doing this for close to 25 years now. Like this is like the way I was raised, and having this awareness, and I've never seen anything that's similar. Like I can't be like, oh, this reminds me of this, or you remind me of that, or you know, this experience. Like everything has always been so different. So it's like not really, you know, I can't really say what is, you know.
Yeah. Kat Brooks has a great question. Best way to protect yourself from your client's energy or from negative energy in general?
So I think that confidence is the biggest one, because the thing is like our spirits are so sensitive, and a lot of people don't, like, you're like, oh, I have a strong spirit, but the thing is like we are so vulnerable, you know. And like, so having a level of confidence in, you know, like knowing that you are in that space for first pure healing, that if you are moving with the strongest intentions and the highest intentions, that in itself protects you. So, you know, like there's not anything specific that I'm like, oh, I have to, you know, worry about, you know, like I just know that I'm protected, I'm divinely guided, my steps are put in front of me. And, you know, like I feel like a big weight just is like so important to be like, all right, this is going to strengthen you, you know, because you're putting yourself, it's like spiritual weight training, in the sense of like you are working with people in a sense of confidence. You are feeling yourself and you are confident that you can help. You know, I think that that's what protects me, is like I know that I've been put in the position to help someone, and that's that.
Have people come to you and said, hey, you know, I have these entities around me, or ghosts in the house, and help me
Yeah,
out?
that's actually like one of the most common things that I do. I do a lot of house clearings. I do a lot of business blessings, and you know, like stuff like that, like get unwanted energy out of space. That's definitely something that happens a lot. Yes.
And Kat says, nice, thank you, Sienna. And what do you do if someone says, I've got an entity in my home? What do you do when you go to their home? Do you put like salt in all four corners of the house? Do you say a prayer? What is it?
Like I said, everything is different. Everything is different. I have a spiritual toolkit that I keep, because I do a lot of traveling for this things that I do. So I do a lot of house blessings, like I said, clearings and, like things like that. Yeah. So I have like a toolkit, depends on what I feel in the house, like some entities might not like certain things that I have, or some might like certain things. Like there's certain entities that like smells, or certain ones that don't like smells, like it's so in particular, like it's so particular. So I can't really say that anything's been the same, but I would say like common things that I keep with me are sage, obviously. And then I do a lot of my own hand blessed incense that I roll myself. And it's all about intention. So like using something that I intentfully used and made myself, that empowers the experience and clears it.
Sure, that makes sense.
That's what I found.
Do you ever use sweetgrass?
I do. I grew up on sweetgrass. That's very common. But I think I'm sweetgrassed out. Like the scent itself for me, it's like
strong.
Right. It's like, how the best way I could express the similarity would be like somebody that grew up in church, and smells a lot of frankincense and myrrh or something. They're like, oh, that smell, like it reminds me of, or Nag Chamba, like it reminds me of a temple or something like that. And they had to go to church all the time. That's how I feel about sweetgrass now.
We have a question from Aaron Tyson. Do you find that people have negative energy that they can't control, or don't know they have negative energy? And how does one better recognize the negative energy?
That was a loaded question. There's so much to answer. So what I would say is, yes, there are absolutely times that people are not aware that they have negative energy, and that's not their fault. And the thing is to be aware of it, they have to look at their relationships and the people that are around them and how they interact. Like, so if you were finding, like, for example, that a lot of people are just, you're conflicting with a lot of people all the time, it's like, it might be you, so you should probably have some self-awareness about that. But
well, I think this is it sounds like an asking for a friend question.
Right.
No, just kidding, Aaron, just kidding. But literally maybe asking for a friend.
Right.
Because I certainly know some people where I'm like, gosh, what is going on there? Which brings me to another question. What if someone is like a sociopath or a psychopath? I mean, do they even have a soul at that point?
Yeah. So not everybody that walks amongst us has a spirit or a soul, and that's a hard truth. In my opinion, I feel like that there's like a lot of people that are like matrix sleeper cells. I believe that strongly. I feel
Really?
like that there's like background, like there's not a lot of people. Think about it. It's like there's so many people on this planet, and I'm not saying like go punch somebody in the face to see if they feel it, like, but I'm saying that there's a lot of people that are just filler, like people. It's hard to explain, but
like agents, like just
right, and
program operations,
right. And like how I was saying before, like not everybody walks amongst us as human, like there's people that are from different realms, or universes. There's different entities that don't belong here. So what's to say that there's not agents that are viewing that, right? So like they're like, oh, I have to go watch these bunch of people that I just left into here, like I let in here, open up this wormhole. Sounds really weird and sci-fi, but it's really true. Like I look at this stuff and I'm just like, this world it's trippy. It's trippy.
Well, I'm guessing it is trippy. I'm guessing you've met or bumped into someone, whether it's on an elevator or on the street or anywhere, and you just get this vibe like, are
Yes.
they human? What, there's something very different about them. You've had that experience?
Yes, I have. So when I went to New York City. This is the most dominant experience that I've had. So I went to New York City, and New York City is obviously, a breeding ground for, like Men in Black style. Men in Black is not like, I think that's a documentary, not like a movie, but like those, like that's literally how it kind of is, right? So, you see the energy of like all these people. So I went down to New York City, and I'm just walking, minding my own business. And this man looked at me and he says, "Your light's too bright." And I said, "What?" And he says, "Your light is too bright." And I said, "Oh, okay." And like I don't talk to strangers, like stranger danger. Yeah. So I started to walk, like, cause I was like, it's a little creepy. And he says, "No, listen." He's like, "They're watching. Look there, look there." And he pointed at these people that kind of didn't look like people to me at all. Like they just kind of looked weird, like it was like by Madison Square Garden, like by Penn Station. And he pointed at somebody, and then he pointed at somebody on the other side of the street. And they kind of looked like security, like they were just standing there. And he's like, "They're watching. Your light is too bright." And it freaked me out, because I was like, the hell is he talking about? But I looked at those people that, like, there was two men, and they didn't look like people. Like I felt like something in my core was like, they're like not from here. I don't know what that is. And it scared me. It still gives me creeps, because like that man saw me, and there's so many other people that he could have said something to, and he would have said something to. So like, I truly believe that they walk amongst us, and I've experienced it in that space. Yeah.
See, thank you so much for being on with me tonight.
Thank you. I enjoyed my time. It was so fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So where can people find out more about you, Instagram, and your website?
So you can find me at demurelyfe.com. That's DEMURELYFE.com. And you could find me on Instagram, and that's Demure Lyfe, DEMURELYFE. And there's a underscore between Demure and Life.
All right. See, thank you so much, and hopefully I'll see you around.
Thank you so much. Yes, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Have a good night.
Enjoy. Take care. Bye.
Okay. That was a fantastic conversation with C. Thank you so much for joining me in the first hour. We're going into the second hour with Margie K. She is the owner of KUNXDB Network, and we'll be discussing her new co-authored book about UAPs. Stand by. This is Alan B. Smith for Paranormal Now on the Paranormal Pop YouTube channel, rebroadcast 2 a.m. Fridays on KUNXDB. We will be right back on the Inverted Upside Down. This coffee is delicious. Is that a UFO? I'm actually seeing a UFO. This coffee is awesome. That's why they call it alien coffee bean. Is this even made on Earth? Hey y'all. Paranormal Now will be syndicated on the UnX network, the new mainstream, where you can find your favorite hosts and shows on the cutting edge of ufological and paranormal news and topics. Listen for Paranormal Now rebroadcast on the X at 2 a.m. EST Fridays, 11 p.m. PST Thursdays at unxnetwork.com. Welcome back to Paranormal Now. This is Alan B. Smith, your grateful host. Coming up in just a moment is Margie K. And taking us out of the break was music by Septembrio. If you enjoyed tonight's bumper music, check out Septembrio at Septembrio, spelt with a Y.com. Margie K. is a veteran paranormal investigator, writer, and remote viewer. She is the author of 14 books and is the owner of UnX Media Publishing Company, which publishes her books and books for others. Kay is a nationally acclaimed remote viewer and has helped to solve over 60 missing person theft and homicide cases for law enforcement and private investigators worldwide. Margie is the Assistant State Director for Missouri MUFON and the Director of the Oz Interdimensional Communication Institute. Go to unxnetwork.com to find out more about Margie's new station. Margie K., welcome to Paranormal Now.
Thank you. It's good to be here, Alan.
Yeah, thank you. It's an absolute honor to have you on. We have a lot to talk about tonight with your new book. I'm really excited. In the timing of this book, your publishing is perfect because I feel like we're kind of in this period where we had a lot of excitement over the summer leading into the fall. And now I think we need some time to really look back at the evidence and not just the news media headlines. But before we talk about your UAP evidence and work, tell us a little bit about the new station.
Oh, gosh. Well, we launched the KUNX network, known as the UnX network, on October 31st last year, which was an appropriate day, we believe, for a paranormal network to start. And it had been in the works for a year prior to that. Mm-hmm. And of course, we've got some really fantastic shows, and yours is one of them, Alan. I really like your show. And I especially like the guest you just had on. She was right on. Yeah. She was very, very knowledgeable. And it's information like that we're trying to get out. So it's about everything that's unexplained. It's not just paranormal and hauntings and UFOs, UAPs, Sasquatch, crop circles, things like that, but also the spiritual nature of things. And in fact, we've got some more shows coming up that will be joining us shortly that delve a little bit deeper into that sort of subject, because it's all connected. As you know, I know you're certainly aware of that. And, we need to have an open mind. We need to all keep an open mind about all of these subjects, because they are interconnected, especially when it comes to consciousness and telepathy, contact. That's, the dimensions like you were just speaking about. That is the key to everything, I believe.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. So do you think that that's like the nexus consciousness where all these different paranormal enigmas intersect?
They most certainly, I believe that, yes. And I have been working on this for so many years on all of these various subjects myself and investigating them for others. But of course, I've had my own experiences, and that's all led me down this path to one point, and that is level of consciousness and the level of vibration. And as we raise our level of vibration and our awareness, that's when all of these experiences begin to happen. And so we might start out slow, and then things will come to us as we're ready for them. And it could be anything. It could be any number. It could be a voice speaking in your head, and you might not know what that is, but years later you'll find out, as you know, as to one of the things that happened to me. Then you might start seeing spirits and communicating with them, and then you might start seeing extraterrestrials and start communicating with them, and it just escalates from there. And then you become aware that there are multiple dimensions and multiple types of entities, and that, you know, one of the main things that I believe is that we're in this space that we call the planet Earth, but we're not the only thing in this space, that we're multiple dimensions, and there are other things in this same space. But since it's, you know, different dimensions, we don't interact with them normally. Don't interact with them.
Let me ask you this question, because you are running this network and you're reviewing all these different shows and bringing them onto the platform. And you've been doing this for a long time. What is it that makes all of us interested in this and pursuing this and obsessed with radio and podcast and writing and blogging? What makes us not crazy?
That's a good question. Well, there are some people in this who might need to go to Bellevue, you know, and there's some people who you might call an enthusiast that becomes obsessed. Well, I dare say I'm probably obsessed, but no, we have to keep our feet on the ground too. We have to be well grounded. And I think that a person who is well grounded and can function in everyday life and go about, you know, their business or their work, whatever they need to, but is also interested in these various subjects, is using both sides of their brain. That's the person who uses logic and intuition in order to solve big questions.
Sure. Right. Elizondo Stan said, I ran over a gray alien in my Bronco 4 years ago. I'm not sure if that's a facetious comment or not, but have you heard of these kind of encounters actually? Accidents happening? Because we hear about UFO crashes, right? What about, you know, crashes and you know, clashings, accidental or otherwise, outside of UFO crashes?
I have not, in all of my investigations, run across a case where a person has physically interacted. Well, no, I can't say that. Where there has been harm caused to an extraterrestrial by a human. There has been physical interaction, but I have not worked on any. Well, I have had some where the person has been harmed, but this would have been, say, in an abduction case where they may be doing medical experiments or tests, and the ETs involved in some of those cases don't seem to have any empathy for the human, and they're just going about their business, and they don't seem to have emotion. Now, not all of them are like that. Not all of the ETs are like that, but I haven't, you know, in all the ones that I've worked on, run across a case like that.
That would support UFOT's comment in YouTube. Replaceable biotech. So let's hope that is the case. But I do wonder how much of these encounters with aliens are really just EBEs or you know, essentially robots or biotech. Do you have any sense of how many of these beings are actually, you know, flesh and blood creatures from another planet or from another dimension?
It's my belief that most of these entities are actually interdimensional, that they're not getting here from another planet, or maybe they did a long time ago and they're just here. This is their home base. And when we see them in the sky, A lot of times people will see something and then it disappears, or they see something just simply appear out of nowhere. That's probably a portal or a wormhole opening, and it's just there. So the entities themselves are so varied. I can't even count how many different types I have heard people tell me in my investigations that they've seen. And I have seen a number of types myself. They all seem to have a different personality, a different agenda, and a whole different makeup, physical makeup. They look different. They act different. So I don't think we could say, oh, there's X number. I don't think that's possible.
Well, what is Margie? What have you seen?
I have seen, well, I'll start with some entities that appeared to me in my bedroom several years ago. I was having some foot pain. Now understand that I have seen UFOs my entire life, and I believe that I was involved in, abduction and things like that. And I've had some strange experiences that couldn't be explained. But as far as a real-time event that I did not look at under hypnosis, the first time that occurred to me, I believe it was like 2012 when this happened.
Okay.
So it hasn't been that long ago. But I had been having some pain in my feet, and I went to my doctor. I went to a podiatrist, and they could not figure out why I was having such pain. And it got so bad that I couldn't walk anymore, and I had to just crawl on my knees because my feet hurt so bad. And I just had this feeling to send a message out. So I meditated, lay down right before I went to sleep. And I just sent this message out to the universe that anybody is around, I don't care who it is, any benevolent being that would like to help, please come help me out. Yep. And so I fell asleep. Next thing I know, I felt this really, really bad pinch in my left calf, like a needle was being inserted into the bone. And it woke me up. I opened my eyes and I saw these two about 4 foot tall gray ETs. They were semi-transparent, but they were definitely there. I mean, definitely physical beings. And one of them had his hands out right at the bottom of my feet. The other one was just standing there as far as I could tell. And I sensed another one to my right, which would have been standing like right in the bed, but I didn't see it. And my first reaction, of course, we're talking real time, first time I've seen one up close in my house in the middle of the night. So I screamed, threw the covers over my head, like that's going to help, right? And
I mean, you don't know in that moment, right?
And then I'm thinking, well, wait a minute. I asked them to come. I asked them to help me out. So what am I doing? So I take the covers down, and I didn't see them anymore. But I felt their presence. They were still there. So what had happened, I analyzed this later. It happened 2 more times after that with different types of beings. And I analyzed it, and I thought, my logical brain kicked in. What happened was I lowered my vibratory rate because of the fear that I had seeing these creatures. If I hadn't have done that, if I didn't have any fear about it, they would still have been there. I would have been able to see them. And and then I'll tell you about another thing that happened that was pretty funny. I had some trouble with my stomach, and I did the same thing, maybe a year later. And my husband came upstairs, and I fell asleep. He was coming upstairs, and the noise of that woke me up. So I opened my eyes, and here is this gold-colored being with a large head, and the back of the head came out quite a ways. He had his hands above me, like they were right over the spot in my stomach that was bothering me.
Okay.
And I screamed again. Okay. And all he didn't look at me, which is what a human reaction would probably be. to look in that direction. He looked up as if he was looking at another being across the way, across the room.
That you couldn't see, but
that I couldn't see. Well, I didn't look over there, but I saw him look up, and then I could no longer see him. And my husband was standing at, he would hit at the top of the steps by that point. And when I screamed, he backed up against the wall and slammed against the door. And he says, what, something horrible. I said, please tell me you saw that. And he said, saw what? He didn't see a thing. And once again, that was me, that was my vibratory rate.
Why did this happen later in life? Because oftentimes we hear about recurrence beginning in a childhood or teenagehood. Yeah. Why? And on occasion it does happen initially in adulthood, but it's generally pretty rare. So why do you think
I had contact when I was young? When I was 12 months old, I had contact. But my brain didn't process that until much later in life, that was that event that happened. What I had remembered at that age of 12 months was that there was a lightning storm and there was a blue-white light that was constant. It did not stop. And it came into the windows. And then I had something in my nose, and then I had a terrible nosebleed. They almost took me to the hospital. The nosebleed was so bad. And I was, screaming for my parents. Well, later I had regression done in 1987. And I saw what happened. These three beings came in on the blue-white light through the windows. And they informed me, and this is weird, because here I am remote viewing this situation under hypnosis, going back in time and looking at this whole thing, and I could see myself in the bed, and I could see these three beings take me, and I was stiff as a board. So they did something to me physically, and I was very quiet, and they took me out and into a craft. But I also had the knowledge somehow imparted to me that blue-white light is what makes changes the molecular structure of the walls and windows, so that they can come in and out at will. So I learned something during that process. But no, I had a male entity speaking to me from the time I was very, very, very young, and I didn't put that all together until much later. Who it was, like 1985, is when he actually physically appeared to me. He appeared on a wall. This is a very strange story. I was seeing a massage therapist. I lived in Seattle at the time. Okay. And I took my brother and my two young children with me that day to his house, because we were going to go to the Seattle Fish Market after this massage. So I'd been going to him for some time, and I knew him pretty well. And we're getting ready to leave, and all of a sudden his mannerism changes and his voice changes. And it's the voice that I have heard my entire life that tells me, go this way, or take a look at this, or, whatever, giving me suggestions. And he said, would you like to try a light experiment? I said, okay. And so I was aware enough at that point that I knew something really cool was going to happen, that I was going to see something awesome. And I said, sure, I'll try a light experiment. So he had me look at a green light, and then a red light, and then back and forth. And then he says, now what do you see? And I looked up at him, and all I saw was his skeleton standing there. I didn't see any flesh, no person, just his skeleton standing there talking to me. And I told him that. I said, that's what I see. And then, so I'm looking kind of to the left, and then to the right on the wall appears this large head of a man, and he had a helmet on, came to a point down in the center and down the side. So I've always called it an M helmet. And this M follows me around forever, since I was a kid. There's always something about an M, and not just to do with my name, but I guess it does have to do with my name. But anyway, he says, I am Thor, and now you have X-ray vision.
Whoa.
And you and I are going to be working together in the future. We'll be in touch. And he was gone. So I turned to the massage therapist, and he was back to normal. And then I turned to my brother and my 2 daughters, and I said, did you see that and hear that? And they said, what? We didn't see anything. And the massage therapist just looked at me like he didn't know what I was talking about. So this entity, Thor, had entered the body of the massage therapist in order to get this message to me, to make this all happen. And then shortly after that, he contacted me again, and I have been in touch with him. But once again, in 2012, I found out who he is, and he's Valiant Thor, the commander of a fleet of ships that's around the planet. And he visited the Pentagon for 3 years, 1957 and 1961. And he's the subject of the book Stranger at the Pentagon by Dr. Frank Stranges.
Wow.
And I'm like, that's my Thor? What? And he's been he guided me. He guided me to write books. He guided me to start UNX magazine, and quite frankly, to do the UNX network as well. And
so this was an impetus to start this network?
Yes, it absolutely
really
was. Yes.
See, that's really interesting, because the question always comes up when people have these encounters with other consciousness or extraterrestrials, whatever they label it, that there's a purpose behind it. And it's, to me, do you feel like that's kind of your purpose?
It absolutely is. He told me that I have a definite purpose in life, and the purpose is to help raise consciousness. And that's what I do. That
just gives me goosebumps and makes me feel all the better about being on your network. Because that's pretty big. That's pretty big. And I have to say, I'm loving the fact that I'm able to chat with you and, the owner of the network, because it's important, I think, for people to know who is behind the content that we're bringing to them. And so, you are clearly an experiencer, so you can connect on a personal level to so many other people's stories that are similar in so many ways. But, before we run out of time, of course, we want to talk about your book, Fastmovers. So tell us about, the evidence of high-speed UFOs and UAPs, and what have you found?
That book came together over a period of several years. I knew Bill and Wayne for some time, and things just kind of came together. And I got to thinking about some things. I said, you know what? We're seeing the same things. These guys are seeing the same thing that I see with the naked eye. And because I've raised my consciousness up to a certain level, I see very extremely fast moving objects in the skies. And they're there all the time. And not only that, but, spirits also move very, very quickly, interdimensional beings as well. But I've trained myself. At first, I thought I was slowing time down, but I'm just slowing my time down so that I can view them a little easier. And I actually train people how to do that. So what it is, there are multiple fast movers in the skies, and the Navy pilots have got some footage of this. It's been all over the place, the Tic Tac and the Go Fast, things like that. And those were very, very, very fast moving objects, but they're not as fast as some of the ones that we've seen. Now, Bill Spicer is an aircraft interior design engineer who lives in Wichita, Kansas. He discovered the fast movers on his own, and he started capturing them on film. But his story is very unique in that he was actually visited by an interdimensional entity who told him how to view these objects and to capture them on film.
Yeah.
So he had been doing that for a number of years. And then Wayne Lawrence he lived in Blue Springs, Missouri, and his house overlooked Blue Springs Lake. Well, he is a UFO field investigator for MUFON. He was actually our chief investigator in Missouri, and he's now moved to Illinois. So we have a new chief investigator. But he captured hundreds of hours of video of these fast movers going in and out of the lake and clocking them, in some cases, over 8,000 miles per hour. Because if you can get a reference point, then he uses trigonometry to figure the speed.
Sure.
So I decided I would contact these guys and say, hey, would you like to collaborate on a book? And we'll each talk about how we discovered these things and how to view them and how to get video of them, because there's a specific way to do this. And then, I tell people how the basics of meditation and how to raise your vibration and how to see the objects. But another thing that I do to assist people along those lines and a lot of other is I do a remote viewing workshop. And I'm working on a new one right now that will be done this spring. And it's going to focus on UFOs and UFO investigations and how to use remote viewing for this purpose, and also to help people see these craft.
Right. So let's talk a little bit more about that. And I'm going back to a question from UFOT. Have you ever noticed anything on the far side of the moon or near its south pole, Aitken Basin area? Thanks.
Yes, I have. And I don't want to go into a lot of detail about it, but I have seen an opening that is normally closed, but it can open. And I've seen craft going in and out of it, flying craft going in and out of it. And I've also seen a base on the far side of the moon, but it has solar panels that are just inside the front facing part in order to capture the sun.
Yeah.
And so I've seen that there is a working base there now with humans on it.
Oh, with humans?
Yes.
So here's the thing I always struggle with. How do people not see, whether you're working for Google or NASA or whatever private company or government, how do people not see these things? Because it seems to me to cover up something like seeing images of UFOs on satellite, imagery and all that sort of thing, there's got to be thousands of people you have to keep quiet, right? So how do you keep that under wraps?
Well, I know that they have people that are watching for these things all the time. And the minute it's noticed, they take it down. So there are some people who are watching for these things and capture video of it. Like Mary Hall is one of these people. Mary Hall watches our satellites and all the feeds and from the ISS feed all the time and captures video when she sees something and then replays it. But you will not see that video again on the NASA channel. It'll be their job is to erase it.
Right. So I guess in real time, there's probably a latency of some sort before it hits the air. So maybe that gives them a moment to kind of clip something before it streams on YouTube or wherever the live stream is.
But some of these things are captured anyway.
Yeah. But something like a base on the moon with China, with India, ESA, European Space Agency, sending satellites out there. Are they also in on this? And how do you do that, right? Like if it's one thing for us to say the United States is doing a cover-up because we want to keep the knowledge of extraterrestrials and technology secret for whatever security reasons. But, considering the differences between us and China and all these other countries, are we all working together? Is this kind of like the neutral zone in a sense, speaking in Star Trek parlance?
I think that the nation states must be working together on the cover-up part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like you said, there's a lot going on out there, and there's obviously right now, especially different states are doing things that are not good, but they must have some agreement about the extraterrestrials that they're trying to keep as quiet as possible. Now, with these new ventures that are privately owned and going into space, I think that's when we're going to start seeing a lot more evidence come to light. I think they'll be capturing video and sharing it. Hopefully they will be.
What are they doing in these bases on the moon, or this base?
Well, I have not looked very closely, because when I run into something that could be a secret operation, say by our government, and when I saw that there were humans there, I knew it had to be, so I backed off from it. So I don't remote view something that is a government operation.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah,
So
I'll
kind of protecting yourself.
Oh yeah.
Oh, interesting. Being a remote viewer, has that brought you any attention from the government? Like,
yeah, that's all I'm going to say.
For those of you who are listening to the podcast or the stream, check out the YouTube channel for Margie's facial reaction. It's very, very telling.
Yeah.
So I have a really, really great question here from Kat Brooks in YouTube. In light of a big war starting as we speak, hopefully not, what can we expect from the ETs?
That's a really good question. There's one thing that I know for certain, because Valiant Thor told me directly and very seriously, they are not going to allow nuclear war. If somebody starts bringing up nukes, they are going to intercede. And I feel confident in saying that, because anytime I say something like that, I'm sticking my neck out.
Sure.
But he was very adamant that they are not supposed to interfere in anything that we do, in our evolution, in our experience, in this human experience on the earth right now. They are not supposed to interfere in that. However, when we do something that is harmful to them and to other dimensions, and tears holes in other dimensions, and I think some of the nuclear testing, even just the testing, not necessarily the bombs that have been used, has created some tears between dimensions. And that could be one of the explanations for why there are so many portals around the planet right now, and people seeing things going in and out. And there's it's not just UFOs, but it's other types of entities that are coming in and out. And also, I really feel like a lot of these missing people that are missing from the forests and the national forests and the national parks, things like that.
Yeah,
they could actually be walking into a portal and just be transported to another dimension, and they're just gone.
And that is a big question, I think, for a lot of us, missing peoples, right? But I don't want to go too far away from your work, because I am curious about the actual evidence. So you use remote viewing to see that there are indeed UFOs out there. How does one go from there to actually capturing evidence that you can bring forth to others and say, aha, look, this is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm seeing.
Well, for instance, if I'm working on a case where there has been a witness that has experienced something, and they may think that there had been a landing or maybe an abduction, or they left some evidence behind, then I'll remote view the situation. And here's how it works most of the time. The person involved does not know that I'm remote viewing. I don't even bring that up. I'm just doing a straight investigation. I file a report and it's done. But if it's someone I know, or if it's a case that comes to me that is not through any official organization, then I might share with them, depending on their experience, that I do this. And so, at any rate, I'm going to view the case, and I look at what the person was doing right before they saw something.
Mm-hmm.
I look at the landscape and where it is, and I will describe the area. Maybe there's a building there, maybe there's a car, maybe there's a highway or a telephone pole or a pond. There's always something that can identify that area. And I'll ask the person if that's correct, and they'll let me know. If I'm not talking to that person at all and just remote viewing a case, then I will have someone else just simply give me a case number and tell me nothing else. And I'll remote view that, find out if I'm in the correct spot. And there's usually enough information written down that tells that, that gives that information. And if it doesn't, the other investigator will get on Google Earth and put in that address and take a look at it to see if I am in the right spot. Then I'll watch to see if there was an interaction, if there was a landing, if there was a visitation, and what these entities wanted. And if the person was taken, a lot of times they're not taken. They're simply visited in their house. Sometimes they're simply imparting information to the human, and they do that telepathically. Sometimes they're checking them, and a lot of the time, I know some people don't agree with me on this, but this is what I've been told, is that they are enhancing humans. So they may put an implant in for various reasons, but one of the reasons is enhancement. So increasing awareness, increasing the senses, increasing intelligence, and different interests. And a lot of times people will change after they've had a close encounter experience. They're suddenly interested in new subjects, or maybe they're interested in science all of a sudden, or flying an airplane, something like that. And they completely change, or they partially change, and they're interested in these new things. So there's various things. And then sometimes they're actually taken into a craft and taken away, and I'll see that, and I'll see on the inside of the craft, see what it looks like and what they were doing with that person. But here's the weird thing. The first time I tried this was, maybe 10 years ago. I was working on a case, and they said, Margie, could you please remote view? I need to know if I was taken. And so I did, and I saw the inside of the craft, and I was explaining that. And then I went into a room, and here I saw that person lying on a table, and they were in a trance-like state. And there were 3 entities at that table. One of them had his back to me, and 2 of them didn't. They were, doing these various medical things to the human. And then one that had his back to me turned around and looked me straight in the eye. And then it was like he was assessing me. He knew I was there. And then he turned back around because he saw I wasn't a threat. So I thought, oh my gosh. So while I'm remote viewing, I'm going back in time. So I'm time traveling. I'm watching an event, and some part of my body, probably my astral body, is standing there that other entity can see. And he saw that I wasn't a threat. Well, I pulled out of that, and I said, well, that's the last time I'm doing that.
It reminds me of the movie Interstellar, and I really love that movie so much, where he's time traveling, and the ghost that they think they see is really himself time traveling, coming through time itself, because time is kind of non-linear, right? So I want to get to this this idea here that Sienna had mentioned in the first hour, that she felt at one point in time that she had seen these, what I would call probably watchers, with the capital W, whatever that means, that she felt were otherworldly or not really human.
Yeah.
What's your experience with that? Are we looking at extraterrestrials? Are these, I don't know, angels or something like that?
It's funny that you should bring that up, because while she was talking about that, I was just running through my mind some experiences that I'd had
Mm-hmm.
with non-humans. The first one occurred at a UFO conference in Arkansas a number of years in the 90s.
Okay.
I'd been going to that thing for years, and I'd never seen anyone strange. I'd never even thought about non-humans walking around. But we went outside on a break, and in the hallway, here is this man who's over 7 feet tall, standing with a group of people talking to them. And I looked, and I recognized. Well, see, I see people's energies. Now, I normally am not looking for an energy, but if I catch something that's a little off, I'm just going to take a double take. And I thought, this guy has no energy field. He has no aura, in other words. He didn't have any colors around him like the other people do.
So you see auras?
Yes. And
Okay.
I thought, this is a non-human. Well, and that all happened very, very, very quickly. But he turned his head. I mean, he was looking off to the side, and he just turned and looked at me right in the eye. So he heard my thoughts. You know, he's telepathic.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
I thought, okay, I'm leaving here. So I went into the auditorium, and my girlfriend and her brother were sitting there, and I said, I need you guys to just go out in the hall and see if you see anybody that's a little odd, and come back to me. And that's all I told them. They came back and they go, oh my gosh, there's a super cool guy there. You know, he's a nice looking guy, but there's something just off. There's something weird going on.
Yep.
So the next break, that guy was gone. He was not there anymore.
He
And
knew he was made.
I've heard that happen at UFO conferences, where people will notice someone there that is not human. And then
Right.
as soon as they're noticed, they're out of there.
Yeah, and to be clear, or at least I'm not talking about, men or women in black. We're talking about people that otherwise look human but feel like it's a sensation. It's like a feeling, a very deep feeling. There's something in their behavior that just screams non-human.
And I'm afraid there are a lot of them walking among us.
Should we be afraid of the fact that they're here? Or
no. I mean, I don't think we should be afraid. Really, their purposes are observing human behavior, getting to have a human experience, because they probably have never had one before. They may have incarnated on different planets and then wanted to have one here, maybe. Some of them are taking our resources. I know that. I've remote viewed that, and I've seen them going into the earth in various manners and taking things. One of the places they go is Arkansas a lot. They take the crystals. They use the crystals on their ships for different purposes.
interesting.
And but there are some negative ones. I was approached by a very, very negative entity some time ago at a psychic fair at a conference, and there was a man who was outside. He was talking to a friend of his, and a woman walked up to me and she said, do you know that guy? And I said, no, but his energy, and I could see this dark field around him, very, very, very dark, heavy, powerful presence. And she said, well, he's a warlock and he's very bad, and everyone here is afraid of him. And she said, don't be surprised if he comes over to you, because he's going to check everybody new out. I said, okay, that's fine with me. So I had that warning, so I had my guard up. And what a lot of people, your guest earlier was mentioning about using both hands. You have to know the dark to know the light. You have to be balanced, right? Well, when you have certain abilities, you also do have the ability to do harm. as well as the ability to do good. And of course, I am always focused on positive. But if something is going to attack me or my family, I have certain abilities that can ward that off.
Yeah.
Well, this person did not know that. And he for some reason wanted to have power over all of these people in this organization. And so he kept his negative power up all the time, supercharged all the time. And I could tell this. He started walking towards me, came into the building, walked right over to me, right in my face. I mean, close. And he was challenging me. Well, I pushed my energy out and he backed off.
Wow.
And he left. And the woman standing next to me said, I have never seen him back off before.
Ever. How did you push your energy out? What is that? What are you doing?
Well, you simply build up energy. Universal energy is around us all the time.
Okay.
And if we want to attract that to use for some reason, like maybe Reiki, and I do something that's very, very similar to Reiki, that's hands-off healing. It's energy work. And so you simply gather that up. And if you need to protect yourself, you can gather enough of it to create this like energy field that's very powerful and then push it out. So it's a very, very, very quick push if somebody is near you, and they will instantly back. They'll feel it. They'll physically feel it.
It sounds like the Force.
Yeah, you could call it that. Yes.
Yeah. I have a comment here from Jesus Torres Martinez, and I think that this ties back into what we were talking about earlier. He said, I believe that the UAPs are already intervening. The coming years, climate change will accelerate in order to keep humans on their toes. Their main interest is not humans, but the planet.
He is right in that they are interested in maintaining the planet and keeping the planet healthy. And there are things that humans have done that are not good to the planet. However, the planet can correct itself. I have, I've been told this, especially by Thor, that the planet can correct itself, and they do measures to assist in that. And yes, they have been intervening for many years, but they are also interested in not only observing humans, but also helping us accelerate in our learning process and in our level of consciousness. Because once we reach a certain level of consciousness, there will be no more war. There won't be any more fighting. There won't be any more hate of people for any reason. Once everybody realizes that we're all interconnected, that we're connected to everything in the universe.
So on the one hand, we're told that they don't intervene, but on the other hand, we're told that they do. So well,
they don't call it intervening; they call it suggesting. They call it helping to give us some tools to accelerate.
A little nudge.
Yeah. They don't like the idea of, well, they could do it, taking over the entire planet and taking all of our weapons away and all of our toys and closing down all of our hospitals and fixing us all so that we don't need to have any so we don't have medical issues anymore, which is something that Valiant Thor offered President Eisenhower, and he refused because it would destroy our economy.
Wow. Now, why do they go through our world leaders? Why don't they speak directly to the people? I mean, we're a democracy, right? So why don't you come to the people of a democracy and say, hey, this is what we have to offer. Do you guys want to talk about it and get back to us? And then the people can vote on these things. I mean, at least I would think so, right?
Well, it's kind of not how it works. How it works is they've given up on the world leaders. The world leaders do know about them. They have showed me or I've remote viewed interviews with ETs and heads of state. I've watched that happen a couple of times, but now I back off of that since it's government. But they have told me that they pick and choose some individuals, and they enhance them, and then they in turn are to help raise the consciousness of those around them. So it's kind of indirect, because humans can relate to other humans better than they can with a very unusual looking and acting extraterrestrial, right? So the humans who are ready to see and interact with the extraterrestrials will have that experience like me. And then we in turn are charged with giving or disseminating that information to others. And that has been the way they have done it for millennia.
We have a question from Genghis Khan. Does Margie think that multiverses exist? And if so, has she remote viewed to any, or is that even possible?
Yes. And I believe that there are unlimited multiverses. And I have remote viewed them, and I have remote viewed a situation with another person that I am connected to in another dimension, which is kind of rare. You don't hear about that happening too often. And I have only had maybe 5 experiences, because we both have to be doing meditation at the same time and have the same intent to trade bodies, and then look at the other world that the other person lives in. And that world is extremely weird. Very, very, very different than this one.
What does it look like?
Oh gosh, it's very barren. There are not many trees. I know there's water on it, although I don't see any water in the area that I'm in. And there is a house that is halfway underground and half above ground. They go down, they walk down into the house, but it does have a roof on it that looks kind of like a thatched roof. And there's a fireplace where they do their cooking. Everything's very simple. They have wooden spoons and knives and forks. And I don't think, but they do have the ability to create things because there is a train that this being that I walk into, and it's a man, by the way, gets on this train every day. And it's a little teeny tiny one compared to ours. And it has no top on it. So they get into this train on these narrow tracks and go up a mountain, and they are mining. They're mining something every day.
Yeah.
And then he goes back down and goes into this little house, and I have a wife and 2 children. And every few years we trade and visit.
So he when you say trade, you're swapping places, but are you still, so he's in kind of in your body and you're kind of in his body, but are you still somewhat present in your own bodies?
In that case, I know that I am able to go back to my body when I want to, but I have no sense of it when I go into that dimension. No sense of that other body. I just know that when I come out of this state, I will be going back.
UFOT recommends The 11th Green on Amazon. It's a documentary on UFOs in Eisenhower.
Oh, okay. I have not seen that. I will take a look at that for sure.
You have to check that out as well. You do more than UAPs, and I just want to quickly highlight another book here called Winged Aliens, a theory that winged cryptid creatures are aliens and or interdimensional beings, which is kind of what we were talking about. So winged aliens, is that what Mothman is, do you think? Or is that something separate?
No, I definitely think so. I think that the Mothman creature and a lot of these other winged creatures like pterodactyls, they're in the book too. But also fairies and Thunderbird and some other unidentified, just giant birds that people are seeing in 1 minute and then they're gone. and then you can't find it. They look everywhere. They cannot find this thing again. Where does it go? You know. So I started working on that book about 10 years ago, because I was receiving reports, and I started cataloging the winged creatures reports. Now, another weird thing, you know, we were talking about the fast movers earlier. Some of the fast movers have wings, and they flap their wings. And this is something fairly new that's developed since I printed the book. Well, no, one case is in the book, but there's a person near St. Louis, in a town outside of St. Louis, who has been capturing the fast movers and been interested, and she watches the skies every day. And she has captured some fast moving winged creatures, and we're talking fast. There can't be birds because they move so fast. You know, 1,200 miles an hour. That's not a bird.
Okay, right. We're not talking about 90 miles an hour. You're talking 1,200 miles. That's crazy fast.
Yeah. So, and her case led me to start investigating others, and there are others out there, and there are these cases that are showing up on Facebook, and well, I captured this thing that's super fast, and it's got wings, and its wings are moving. How could that be? Yeah. One of the strangest cases in the book, and I'll just mention this one real quick. This is a lady that's not very far from me that's had multiple things happening on her property. So she'll contact me and another investigator quite often. Well, in this one case, she saw a very, very large hawk. She thought it was just a hawk, just, you know, bigger than normal. So she kept her eye on it. It morphed into a silver disc shaped UFO and then shot off at incredible speed. Yeah. So what she thought she was looking at morphed into something completely different. So that is definitely related to UFO. Yeah.
There are multiple shape-shifting aspects to all this. And I had a guest on recently who talked about, you know, seeing a pterodactyl type thing. And that's something that is recurring as well, including Thunderbird. And I look up in the sky, and especially if you're one that looks up often, you see large birds, you know, hawks, and, you know, whatever. Eagles, we have bald eagles, you know, in our area. You know, they have pretty big wingspan. Vultures, I wouldn't confuse that with a pterodactyl. I would not mistake that for a thunderbird. So there certainly is something going on here. And I just want to squeeze this last question in here for you tonight, Margie. This is from Aaron Tyson. From a humanitarian and human rights standpoint, should we be concerned about alien abductions, in that we should be concerned about human rights?
Well, that is a loaded question, and there are a lot of opinions about that. From my standpoint, the entities that I have been involved with and who have taken me aboard craft, although I wouldn't call it an abduction because I went willingly, they have been there to assist me in some fashion. I have had no negative experiences myself. Now, I know some other people have, and they're very adamant about that. But with those people, I say to them, have they killed you, and have they seriously harmed you? No. The answer is always no. There could be some out there that I don't know about, but in the ones that I've worked with, that's what it is. And I said, well, I don't think they're here to kill you, because if they were, you wouldn't be here. And in fact, none of us would be here, because obviously their technology is much further advanced than ours, and their level of consciousness is much further advanced than ours, and they're in higher dimensions than we are. Why are they bothering to come down to this level and to our third dimension if it's not to help us?
Well, I certainly hope that is the case. For everyone watching tonight, thank you for joining us. If you enjoyed our conversation, please like, subscribe, comment down below. We're trying to get this channel to grow, so I'd really, really appreciate it. Margie, if people want to find out more about your book and the station, where do they go? Just
go to margiek.com. Everything is there.
Everything you need at margiek.com. All right, Margie, thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Alan. Great show. And you're doing a great job on the network. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Honored. All right. And thank you all for joining us. Again, please like, subscribe, comment down below. I could really use the help to grow the channel. And please check out unxnetwork.com for this show and many other shows. And if you missed tonight's stream, you can catch it on UNX Network at 2 a.m. on Fridays. As always, I really appreciate the comments. Thank you for all the fantastic questions tonight. You are an integral part of this show, and it makes it all the more fun for all of us. So, as usual, peace and love, and live in the mystery.